Hi there, Dr. Carlos Todd here, back with another video on anger and conflict. So what are we talking about today? We're talking about why couples fight. Anger and conflict is my thing, and so we're going to talk a bit about why couples fight. Why do we have conflict? So there are a lot of myths. We have conflict because we're incompatible. We have conflict because. But there are specific scientific or just general reasons why couples fight, why we have conflict. So I'm going to outline a number of those reasons for you today. Again, my name is Dr. Carlos Todd. I'm the creator of Conflict Coaching and Consulting along with my wife. And we run 3 different websites. Masteringconflict.com, where we have a private practice in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. And we serve couples across the country through our coaching program. Masteringanger.com, where we provide anger management courses for individuals, employers, as well as couples. And then couplesfightschool.com, where we host a number of programs for speaking engagements or books or other programs around specifically couples conflict. So let's talk a bit today about why couples fight. One of the reasons that couples fight is because of unprocessed or undealt with emotions, right? And then this can create a lot of reactivity. But what does that look like in a practical space, right? A lot of couples have pre-existing traumas, like incidents of infidelity that have happened that they have really not been dealt with. This is an issue that I'm having conversations about every single week in my private practice, where couples don't really address infidelity in a way that is structured, that's going to help you get past the issue. So there are a bunch of flare-ups that happen, that triggering that happens, that feels like, whoa, where did that come from? It's just kind of out of nowhere. Just unprocessed hurt, people feel not seen, not understood, and that kind of thing. And the outcome of that is that there are these conflicts that just seem to come out of nowhere. So that's one reason, right? Unprocessed emotions or emotional reactivity. Lack of awareness. Some couples just don't have a really good awareness of what they're feeling or what's going on with them. And this often can lead to explosions, because when you don't have good self-awareness, the emotions that you tend to express the most, is anger or even irritability. So you may be feeling overwhelmed, fearful, disconnected, inadequate, but that's not the emotion that comes out. And so something happens and you're not aware, you can't express that I feel overwhelmed or disconnected or whatever. You just kind of walk around that, and your partner doesn't really know what's going on, why you're feeling that way, and they understandably think that it's something that they did. And when people think that it's something that they did, they might react with sympathy, but they also may react with defensiveness. And so the end result of that is what? Conflicts about nothing. Well, it is something, but conflicts that are not really about the real issue. So the second one, again, is not being self-aware. So the impact of that becomes significant. Sometimes people just don't have good communication skills. They don't know when to pull back, what to say, how to say. People have issues with things like, harsh startups. They're defensive. They have issues around contempt. They're critical, or they stonewall, right? Stonewall and they just stop talking. And so when you have poor communication skills, you don't know exactly how to say what you need to say. The end result is this perpetual cycle of conflict. The good news is that there are skills. There are ways that you can get past these poor communication issues to really a better way of operating. There's also the issue of power struggles and control. Some relationships struggle because individuals don't really know how to be submissive. And I'm not talking about submissive like a man being submissive to a woman being submissive to a man. I think sometimes you're just being, probably a better word is just humble. The need for control, the need to control every situation, every interaction, is a major issue, because the other person can oftentimes not feel heard. But under this issue of control or this power struggle is rooted in my opinion, inability to manage anxiety. You just don't seem to have the skills to be able to manage the fact that when I say anxiety, I'm not talking about like somebody has an anxiety disorder or something. Your partner says something or something is done, and the only way you know to deal with that is I don't agree. That don't make no sense. Or to be critical. That approach is not useful, but that's the approach that oftentimes people know, because in their childhood homes, people didn't discuss things, right? So the ability to process stuff is just not there. And so the way how you know to deal with the things is just to try to shut it down. But the end result is what we know, right? I mean, again, perpetual conflicts, or people just don't talk about deeper, meaningful stuff. What's another one? Misaligned expectations. Especially misaligned expectations that folks are not talking about, they're not communicating about. Well, my expectation is that we spend time together. My expectation is that we have a structured budget. My expectation is that we raise the kids in this particular way. But it only comes up when it comes up, right? So if you're talking about parenting, you butt up on a situation where you're talking about bedtimes or something like that, but it's new, right? It's coming up now because you haven't really discussed expectations, and all of a sudden it feels like, well, you don't care about my way, and people, they don't feel as though they're heard or understood, and that misalignment and combined with a lack of communication creates more issues. And so that's an issue that we have to address. By the way, it's important to recognize that, to share with you that all of these areas are covered in my book, Fight Plan. And so if you want to understand how to effectively address conflict, I go through 5 areas that are important in being able to address the conflicts in your relationships, right? Why is it that couples fight? There's a F for framework. You need to kind of think about conflict differently, understand conflict differently, because if you think that conflict is a bad thing, it's going to be an issue, right? Because every time it comes up, you're either going to avoid it or you're going to find a way to shut it down as quickly as possible. But conflict is a good thing, right? Because people who engage in healthy conflict actually grow, have much more dynamic and healthy relationships. I is the inability or the challenges around introspection. What is my role in this conflict? How do I effectively deal with conflict? G is for ground rules, being able to set rules around conflict, because conflict is inevitable. Conflict in relationship is not a bad thing. What is a bad thing is not having a strategy or ground rules on how to address it. H is for healing and repair. If you have effective healing and repair strategies, then you're going to be in a much better place to address and deal with conflict. How to talk about the issues of the past, the hurts of the past, and so on. And T is for transformation. Most couples don't understand the nature of change. What they think about is that if I learn this new skill, we go from bad to good. And that's not the way how things work. How things typically work is that you go from bad ways of understanding and dealing with conflict to a slow process of building new skills till you get to that new place. And so part of the challenge is that people will come to me, for example, and I'll give them a skill and they're like, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, it's like, that didn't work. They don't give it time to work. They don't understand that people tend to take incremental risk, right? So if the goal is greater intimacy, for example, like connection, it's not like the first thing is that people are just gonna go like give you this big huge hug, right? Sometimes it begins with just, hey, let me go sit next to my partner. The issue there is that sometimes that's not enough, right? You sat next to me, but you didn't even touch me. And there we go, right? In their person's mind, they're starting the process. The other person criticizes it because it's not what they think in their mind change is supposed to be. And so you now have this problem that is set up. But so learning transformation skills, learning how change actually works will get you to a better place. So click the link below. You want a copy of my book to learn these new skills on how to address conflict. Another area that tends to be part of the reason why couples fight is this idea of spillover stress. A lot of conflicts in relationships are related to external factors that are pressing on the relationship. People have kids, they have careers, right? They have sick relatives, they have other situations that are kind of bearing down on them, other responsibilities like at church, for example. And if you don't have effective or adequate skills to address those issues, then there's a tendency, I think, for things to kind of go off the rails. So that's another area that we want to address. And then the final one is just poor conflict management skills, right? You just don't know what to do, right? You don't have adequate skills. And if you, like I said earlier, if you really want to learn these skills, you want to get a copy of my book, Fight Plan. So that's the reason why couples fight. That's why they fight. There are a list of things, but I've given you what I think to be a comprehensive list in this video. Thanks for watching. Visit us again at masteringanger.com, couplesfightschool.com, and click the link below for a copy of my book, Fight Plan.